Welcome back to the channels, Warriors. We are still growing. It didn't stop. It didn't slow down. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep sharing this message. We're hitting pretty much all 50 states from California all the way to New York and in between. And we are definitely in other countries. Keep sharing. This episode right here is going to be about leadership. Leadership is leadership is leadership. All right? I've had the fortune of being in the military and getting the best leadership right out the gate, right out the back. And this was in 2002, when the world was a little different, if you know what I mean. The best leadership. Dudes that led from the front. Then I joined the California Department of Corrections, where you have your sergeants, your lieutenants that were great leaders. Okay, not everyone, but those were the ones that would stand out. So where am I going with this topic? Here's another one you guys wanted to know. Did I ever talk to? Did I ever have conversations with the highest of the highest in certain gang factions? In certain groups? You guys have referred to them as the Big Four. We didn't refer to them as that. It was kind of broken down to who they were or to who they belonged to. In 2014, 2015-ish, that's when you guys know that they released the heaviest of individuals from Pelican Bay SHU to the main lines. I'll be honest. In 2014, I was a sergeant. That idea didn't sit well with me. That idea seemed like a drastic decision. Fast forward, yes, what they said they were going to do, the peace treaty has been effective, for sure. I saw that change between racial violence. That violence, if you want to talk about that violence has come to pretty much a complete end. Not 100%, but damn near close, right? I already talked about it in another video. You're going to have your little bouts, but those even get quelled. There's no lingering animosity. As a result of those individuals getting kicked out, not every one of those individuals hit active main lines, right? Some had to go inactive by no doings of their choice, maybe doing of their choice, but due to circumstances. And the individual I'm going to talk about right now, I'm not going to give up his name, right? Out of respect. He ended up touching down on an sensitive needs yard, SNY. This dude, at some point, was a somebody. An extreme somebody. And I knew that. I recognized that. Here's another thing I'm going to let you guys in on. Before somebody like that touches down at a prison, or our prison, or a prison that we're at, we know that they're coming in advance. And it'll go like this. Oh, fuck, did you hear so-and-so got endorsed here? That's when I would do my research, see who it was, see what they were about, gather intelligence for myself. Right, I wasn't IGI, I wasn't the Black Patches, I wasn't Squad. I wanted to put myself up on game to see what I was going up against. To see what, and don't get it twisted, not going up against, but to see kind of like strategy, right? Kind of like chess. These are the key players of the fucking chessboard. They're it. These are the ones that they make movies about. All those familiar movies that you guys are aware about. This guy touches down, and initially, like anything else, I'm not the type of dude to go and approach anybody or spark up a conversation or initiate anything like that. I think individuals feel each other out first. They don't know what you're about. I don't know what they're about. So you kind of just feel it out, right? One of the privileges of being a lieutenant is when you're not dealing with BS is sitting around drinking coffee. Well, this guy happened to work in the program office. This guy happened to have a job working inside of where our area, the sergeant and the lieutenant, is. So that afforded the opportunity to have conversations. And conversations we had, for sure. I was intrigued I was intrigued by the level that they reached. The ultimate level. The dude had made it. Not only did he make it there, at one point, this dude was extremely, extremely successful at what he did. He had an influence. He had an influence over the southern population. He had a foothold in numerous prisons, numerous institutions, numerous yards throughout the state. This dude had that much influence, had that much leadership ability. Yes, I said it, leadership. To be able to go for so long and have such a huge base. And this is something, like I said, it intrigued me. Because leadership you see it anywhere. And I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not ignorant. I am not ignorant. So if I can gather knowledge, right? Because I wasn't fishing for information. I wasn't going to use anything this dude told me against him or against anybody else. And even ones that were active that I also had conversations with, those were strictly conversations. I never went back, typed shit up. I never wrote anything down. Strictly for my personal knowledge. Because I wasn't IGI, but I was always infatuated by that level of organization. So he proceeds to tell me from the beginning, his case factors from the beginning, 70s. So there's different generations of this organization. He was one of the early generations, one of the OGs. I'm not going to go as far as say founders, but he definitely knew and was buddies with the founders. And I'm saying buddies as you guys can go ahead and fucking read between the lines here. So not only did this guy reach the top of his level, not only did he have a massive influence and leadership abilities, turns out, but he was one of the OGs, right? Because there's different generations to this game. Turns out the dude was in the army. The dude did serve in Vietnam. I would reference check stuff just to see if they were bullshitting me. And there's other platforms on here. There's other YouTube channels there's one in particular that touches on the history. And this guy has a couple episodes on him. Pelican Bay Shoe, Corcoran Shoe. Pelican Bay's up north. Corcoran was Central Valley. This individual happened to come from Corcoran Shoe. I'm like, break it down, man. Let's talk. I said, how? How were you able to do this? living in a confined space in the SHU for so long, for years, how the fuck were you able to do this? And what the hell did you do in there for your fucking free time? Because that says a lot of an individual to be in a box for 23 hours a day. For years, decades, 20, 30 years. This dude tells me he used to read books. A lot of them told me they used to read books. Talked to a lot of white guys that were in the SHU, up at the top. Reading books, learning different languages, German, leadership, the 20 Laws of Power, The Art of War, Sun Tzu, which I did have happen. I've happened to read all those books. I read all those books on my own prior, right? Because that's the type of mindset that I have. Always wanting to thrive, to be better, to be a good leader. This dude tells me he gets caught up in a case with another one of those YouTube guys that's been around, an OG, and no longer part of that organization. Right? He tells me I wasn't an asshole. I wasn't having dudes get hit for no fucking reason. I wasn't, if something went sideways, I gave the individual an opportunity to explain himself. I gathered facts. I gathered other people's stories, which kind of makes sense. You kind of just don't want to be offing people without proper information. That means stabbing people or killing people. For those of you guys wondering what whacking means. So I'm just listening to this dude, right? Like, sounds like fucking leadership, right? You don't fucking step on the people beneath you. He didn't go much into detail about how communications were established, this and that, but that's kind of common knowledge amongst the prison system, staff or inmates. You know, letters, kites, and now cell phones, without a doubt. But that is common knowledge. He went on to talk about back in the days, Folsom, San Quentin, people getting shot with a Mini 14 for no goddamn reason. I say no reason, but, you know, stabbings. Not no reason, but like if it wasn't a thing. That's what I meant. Getting shot like it wasn't like it was normal fucking program. Talked about the 9mm that they used to have back in the day. Right? I asked him one time, would you write a book, man? Would you do this, that? He's like, nah, I'm not into that kind of stuff. And I could kind of see his point. You know, I'm not even, if I can interview this dude, which I'm pretty sure I can interview this dude, right? It would just be, how do I go about doing it? And that would be something for you guys to have there. A little gem. So, trying to think of what else this guy told me, because not that he told me a lot. That's not what none of this was about. None of those conversations with him about spilling the beans or singing like a bird. It was just fucking chopping it up, right? That's kind of, mind you, this guy he was on a sensitive needs yard, but that doesn't mean he was a punk. And I've said this before. The dude was still about once you're a fucking stone cold killer, you're a fucking stone cold killer. Well, am I going to say for life? Well, I would probably say for life. That's something that you just don't turn off. Something you're always going to have inside of you. And this is me talking from my experience in the military. And I've said there's different levels to this shit. So talking to these individuals at the top. And I've been thinking about this topic. I've been thinking about this subject. Any of those conversations that were had, a lot of the times, not much needed to be said. Not much was wanted to be said on their side. Understandably so. But I want you to imagine two people that know what's up. Or I'm talking about myself, Green, and then I'm talking about those individuals. We know what's up. You kind of don't have to say anything to understand what we're thinking. This is crazy. To understand what we're thinking and understand what we both want to accomplish and what the current circumstances are. And that's probably next level shit. I mean, to be able to have a fucking conversation with somebody without saying a word, that speaks volumes. It can be something, let me give you an example. It can be something as a cop gets hit on the yard. An officer gets stabbed by a gang member on the yard, an inmate. It can be a type where I know the place that I'm coming from as a lieutenant, talking to this individual, he knows where he's coming from as the head of that organization. We know what the fuck we're going to talk about. We know what the fuck this was about. We know what the fuck we want moving forward. It doesn't have to be verbalized. It doesn't have to be vocalized. It can be looking at each other and simply like, is that it? Like, are you guys done? Are we done here? And it can just be an acknowledgement. Now, that's a fucking trip, actually. This is different than being an officer in the building and just a regular soldier, an inmate, right? Are there some that are advanced in their way of thinking, advanced in their communication? Yeah, and those do it, but I'm talking about at the top. I'm not talking about a warden talking to a gang, to the top of the elite, because that's a fucking warden, man. Like, they're oblivious. They're oblivious. They're more of a tit for tat. Hey, buddy, knock it off, and we'll give you program. We'll give you privileges. We'll transfer you where you want to go. They use that type of fucking. They come at you like that. Where I was coming from was like, are we done here? In essence, saying, is there going to be an escalation of violence? I've had those conversations with those individuals. I've told them, we both have seen bloodshed. We both have seen violence. I don't want that. Another individual responded, I don't want that either. I want to chill. Well, I want to fucking chill too. Cool. Leave it at that. That's all that needs to be said. So, I know I was dancing around a lot of certain information. And I did that for a fucking purpose. Right? I did that for a purpose. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Subscribe to this channel. Share this channel. This was kind of like a teaser. All right? A good one. Stay tuned, subscribe, and there'll be more to come from this channel. Keep pushing forward.